Yesterday, Donald Trump appeared on Joe Rogan's podcast in a much-anticipated interview that unsurprisingly went pretty poorly. But because it was a 3-hour interview, most people were unable to see just all of the terrible moments so far. But one of the worst that everyone is missing, I want to get into in this video, because not only was it shocking to Joe Rogan, not only was he disturbed by what Donald Trump said, but it should be scary for all of us. And we, of course, are going to get into that. But before we do, if I could quickly ask you to leave a like on this video, and if you haven't already, to hit that subscribe button. It really goes a long way, and it means the world to me. Now let's get into some of the weird moments from this podcast.
How about in New Jersey, off the coast of New Jersey, they want to build. The people are going crazy not to build them. But where you have them, the whales are washing up on shore.
Right.
So in 50 years, they had one whale come ashore. Now they had like 18 come in the last year.
What is happening with the whales? I've read about this.
Well, they say that the wind drives them crazy. You know, it's a vibration because you have those, those things are 50-story buildings, some of them.
Right, and they're
50.
super sensitive to vibrations
They have
and
those,
sounds.
the wind is rushing, the things are blowing, it's a vibration, and it makes noise. You know what it is? I want to be a whale psychiatrist. It drives the whales frickin' crazy.
Yes.
So,
Of course, Donald Trump loves falsely claiming that whales are being disturbed and harmed by wind energy. But I would say to that point, if you want to become a whale psychiatrist and stop being a fascist, I think that'd be a really helpful pivot for the world. I don't know if it would be a great career for you, but it would certainly be better for all of us. And speaking of Donald Trump getting off track, I am not the only one, and certainly you aren't as well, observing that Trump is already rambling in this interview, and Rogan even called Trump out for that in this clip right here.
the same thing, Joe, because you cannot be voting for Kamala. Kamala, you're not a Kamala person. I know you. I've watched you. I know him better than he is. You know what? Without speaking to you, I think I know you maybe almost as well as your wife. I have watched you for so many years. You're not a Kamala person. You're a Khabib person, but you're not a Kamala person. No, nobody's going to know who Khabib is, but
they know who
he
Khabib
was.
is.
He was not bad, right? That guy.
Oh, he was phenomenal.
But that's your kind of
Your
person.
weave is getting wide. We're getting wide with this weave.
But isn't
It was a 3-hour podcast, so of course the expectation is that Donald Trump is going to ramble, but even Joe Rogan, who, like I said, usually speaks for hours with his guests, couldn't even tolerate a minute of Trump just droning on about nonsense. Called out the weave for getting a little too wide. I don't even know why he called it the weave. It's not the weave. It's the ramble. It's the unhinged, out of control old man in Donald Trump. And it's not just that he is out of control in the things that he was saying, I guess, about Lincoln that he doesn't know anything about. He was also attacking the environment, something he clearly knows nothing about, in this clip right here.
I love the fact that you guys teamed up.
Yeah.
And are you completely committed to have him a part of your administration?
Oh, I am. But the only thing I want to be a little careful about with him is the environmental, because he doesn't like oil. I love oil and gas. I think
just keep him out of that.
To fire. So I'm going to sort of keep him out of a little. I said, focus on health. Focus. Yeah. You can do whatever you want. But I got to be a little bit careful with the liquid gold,
I understand.
It brings me no comfort that RFK Jr. would potentially be involved in a Donald Trump administration, but it's also scary that Trump thinks that he's great on the issue of vaccination. He is great on attacking science. He is great on all the conspiracies he wants to push, but the only real and objective truth that RFK ever talks about, our need to push back against climate change, that's where Donald Trump draws the line. The anti-vax stuff is great for him, but that's where he draws the line. It's just scary, like this is as well.
You're not going to have a problem. And I say it to people, we have a bigger problem, in my opinion, with the enemy from within. And it drives them crazy when I use that term. But we have an enemy from within. We have people that are really bad people that I really think want to make this country unsuccessful. When you look at what's happening at our border, Joe, when you have people coming in that when other countries are allowed to empty their prisons into our country with murderers, we had 13,099 murderers dropped in our country over the last 3 years.
And 15,000 rapists convicted.
Rapists?
Yeah.
Drug dealers, drug lords.
And that's just the ones that have been accounted for.
Correct. People from mental institutions.
What do you think the strategy is?
Hundreds of thousands of major criminals, tougher and worse than anybody we have.
He is back to doing the enemy from within bit. No one is stopping him, and no one is letting him know how damaging that has been. Even the Republicans who tried to go on TV and stand up for Trump as his Trump stooges, as is their job, and they said, no, that's not what Donald Trump means. He didn't even mean to say that. Of course, he's not talking about Adam Schiff and Nancy Pelosi. And then he immediately talks about Adam Schiff and Nancy Pelosi because he is a fascist. We have to stop discussing this like it is a question of yes or no. It is. John Kelly said so. We saw Donald Trump's former generals say so. It's incredibly clear. And it was clear to Joe Rogan that Donald Trump was a joke back in 2022, of course, long before this podcast was recorded. So before we get into this really scary clip of Trump, I think we got to see what Joe Rogan actually thought of the guy who is interviewing in this clip right here.
Incredible about that guy is that, you know, I'm saying even when you watch him as president, he was full of energy.
Full of it.
Every day. And they say he slept for like 4 hours a night. He's one of those people.
He's on Adderall.
God.
Do you think he's on Adderall?
Yes, I do. Only because there were multiple people who used to work on The Apprentice that were like, he was gassed up for shoots.
Really?
Yeah, because he has trouble reading. He doesn't. He would struggle to read prompter or script when he was just let's say sober. So they would give him that, and he would dial in more on reading because he gets very bored. They said, you know, he would get bored at the CIA briefing in the mornings. He was like, I don't want to read that. There's a daily briefing you get as president. He's like, you read it and then tell me. And if it's bored, so they would have to make it more engaging for him because he would just
I heard
tap
that they
out.
would put his name in briefings multiple times to keep him interested.
And then Kushner, you know, his son-in-law,
Yeah.
said that he came up with a formula to keep him engaged.
Kushner did?
Yes, because, you know, he obviously was close to him and knew him well, and the formula was like 2 good, 1 bad. So if they were going to give him bad news, he'd go, you start with some good news. So they go, this is going well, everybody's thrilled with you about this. Here's a bad thing. Also, people love you for this. So that's how they would tell him bad news. They couldn't just go, here's a bunch of bad news.
Of course.
Yeah.
He's a man baby.
He's a toddler. Yeah, he's a toddler.
I wouldn't necessarily call myself a huge fan of Joe Rogan. I am not one to tune into his podcast regularly, but it is sad to see someone who in the past objected to the idea of ever bringing Trump on. I've seen a clip making the rounds of Joe Rogan about a year or 2 ago saying he would never bring Trump on because he wouldn't want to rehabilitate his image with an interview like this to humanize him as the disgraceful person that he is. And what is he doing now? He is talking to the man baby, the guy he called a man baby, allowing him to spew nonsense, allowing him to ramble, and allowing him to attack our democracy, which is exactly what he did in this scary clip right here.
I want to talk about 2020 because you said over and over again that you were robbed in 2020.
Yeah, totally.
How do you think you were robbed? Everybody always cuts you off. I'm going to allow.
Well, they not only cut you off. Well, what I'd rather do is we'll do it another time, and I would bring in papers that you would not believe. So many different papers. That election was so crooked. It was the most crooked election.
Okay, but give me some examples of how.
Well, let's start on the top and the easy ones.
Okay.
They were supposed to get legislative approval to do the things they did, and they didn't get it. In many cases, they didn't get it.
What things?
Anything.
Legislative approval
like
of...
for extensions of the voting, for voting earlier, for this,
Right.
for all different things. By law, they had to get legislative approvals. You don't have to go any further than that. If you take a look at Wisconsin, they virtually admitted that the election was rigged, robbed, and stolen. They wouldn't give access in certain areas to the ballots because the ballots weren't signed. They weren't originals. We could go into this stuff. We could go into the ballots, or we could go into the overall. I'll give you another one.
Are you going to present
let me,
ever? Like, do you think like?
Let me just give you one more
go ahead.
before. 51 intelligence agents come up that the laptop was from Russia. It turned out to be totally false.
51 former intelligence agents, right?
They say that made. I don't believe it's this much, but it doesn't have to. I lost by I didn't lose, but they say I lost, Joe. They say I lost by 22,000 votes. That's like 1/10 of 1%, less than that. It's a tiny little thing. 22,000 votes spread over that's spread over this period. So 51 intelligence agents lied. They lied. They lied. They knew it was. It was Hunter's. It was from his bed. It was Hunter's laptop. They said it was created by Russia. Russia. It was the Russia hoax.
So that clip is unnerving, but also pretty interesting for a couple of reasons. The first, even Rogan, who has been essentially lobbing softballs at Trump this entire interview, being very kind to him, kid gloves, doing whatever he wants, right? He pushes back. When are you going to show us any of this evidence? Trump's answer was, and I quote, and then couldn't. Because, of course, there is no evidence. And it seems like even Joe Rogan knows that. But we also see the moment in which Trump says, well, when I lost, but I didn't really lose. Of course, we expect him to be disputing the outcome of the 2020 election. I shouldn't laugh. It's not funny. It is scary. But then he goes on to try to sow doubt about the results of this upcoming election. And that's what should continue to terrify us. We saw just yesterday a congressman from North Carolina saying that the state should award its electoral college votes to Donald Trump already. Because why? Because they should. That's it. It's terrifying. They want to go after our democracy. They're continuing to. They want to sow doubt about the election. It should scare us all. And it should especially scare us all because of how unhinged Donald Trump is, especially in this clip right here.
Well, they tried to say that with you and Kamala as well. They tried to say that you didn't want to debate her as well.
No, but by the way, with her, number one, I'm leading. Number two, I didn't. They also said it with the primary. So I had like 10, 12 guys, right, in the primary. No stupid guys. I mean, they're governors and they're senators. They're not stupid people. Some are stupid, but not all of them. And all my guys said, you have to be in the debate. I said, why? I'm leading by 74 points. The closest guy to me, I'm like 60 points, 70 points higher. Why would I stand there like an idiot for 2 hours and let every one of them scream at me? I'm going to be the focus. Why?
Right.
I don't think you didn't want to debate because it wasn't politically advantageous. Maybe that's true. I don't know if that's the case. Now, I think you don't want to debate now because you know that whenever you open your mouth, it backfires, as we can clearly tell in this interview. You're confused. You're out of it. Can't control yourself. Kamala Harris makes your blood boil. And then you lash out, as we see over and over again. Speaking of Trump not being able to speak, look at this clip right here.
When a tree falls down, after 18 months, it becomes very dry. It's like, like real firewood. It's bad. A tree that's up, these are all things I learned the hard way, the easy way. But when a tree is up, it sucks water. It's wet. I went to they had a couple of horrible forest fires.
This is my favorite example of how Trump talks about anything, talking about the most basic concepts and introducing them as if this is breaking news to anyone else. And acting like he's explaining it for the first time. So I see the water, and it goes up the trees. Did you know trees, they need water? They call it water. Is this the guy who wants to be president? Explaining how he learned the hard way that trees need water? I know he grew up in New York, but there is Central Park. You can see the trees. Did you go to school? This is an incompetent individual. You can be dumb on trees and still be president. Maybe. I don't know. But you cannot be as stupid as Donald Trump is on everything else and also a fascist and be president. There's a million reasons. We don't even need to talk about the trees. The trees are funny, but we need to talk about the real reasons. And that is what we're going to continue to do on the show every single day. And if you want to support that, as always, you can hit that subscribe button. You can leave a like on this video. And if you're stuck around to the end, you can drop a blue heart in the comments. Until next time, I'll see you soon.